Pablo and I are going to take turns. And we'll tell you a little bit about our home.
And if you want to interrupt us and tell a personal story about something you know about this, go right ahead. Very relaxed thing. We were asked to do this because you see there's some people are from Ukraine, some people are born here, some people are born in America, a lot of people are born elsewhere. So we thought we'd give a very brief highlights of basic stuff you should know about Ukraine. So, you or me, who wants to go first?
You go first. Geography.
Geography. Roll one. Welcome everybody. Who here recognizes this map? Let's have a show of hands. Okay, great. About 50%. That's exactly what we need. So, this is a map of Ukraine as internationally recognized, including America. Over here, we have Crimea. We have city of Kyiv in the middle. I know, but it's good to go through. I like using the laser.
He's building the suspense.
This is Konstantin Dubovenko. He's an excellent guitarist. Okay. Here we have Donetsk region, very industrial, very productive, beautiful lands for harvesting. And here we have Carpathian Mountains and Western Ukraine, where we have a large city of Lviv. So let's go one by one. These are the regions that I mentioned. Down the middle, we have a river. Who knows what this river is called? Exactly. Dnieper. How about this river? Who knows what this river is? Exactly. Kostya, do you know what this river is?
It's the same. It's also Dniester. It's just it kind of goes into other countries and then comes back to Ukraine. Same river.
It was a trick question. See if you got it. There we go. We got Dniester River continues. There's Dnipro. All right. Big cities: Kyiv, Kharkiv, Donetsk, Dnipro, which is coincidentally a Dnipro River. Easy to remember. Odessa, beautiful place. And here, generally, we have a lot of mountains on the western side, and it continues into more flat areas. A lot of sunflowers, sunflower oil, and a lot of wheat gets harvested in the more flat regions. In Crimea, there's a mountainous area. I've actually been inside of this restaurant. It's way too overpriced. I don't recommend going there, but it's a beautiful place to hang out. It's in Crimea. It's called Lastочкино гнездо.
Yeah, it's Swallow's Nest.
Swallow's Nest. It's very pretty. So a lot of pretty stuff, very touristy. Russians are trying to take it, but this week was really productive. We pretty much got most of these Russian ships. We got them into the Black Sea. They're down in the sea. Thank you. And now we're gonna go. Kostya and I, to celebrate, we're gonna go to the restaurant again and spend a lot of our salary on it. Okay. Here we have mountainous forests, and we got Carpathian Mountains in the far west. Now, Konstantin, he's a professional historian. He was born in Kyiv, and I'll give you the clicker, and you can take it away.
Round two.
Round two.
I am not a professional historian, but I was born in Kyiv, so only got 50% of it. So, Ukrainian history is long and complicated, and I am going to try to breeze through this in the most interesting way possible because, part of making the slideshow was also researching all the historic events, and I probably watched 20 or more different YouTube videos. Also, maybe I am a historian now based on just making this presentation. But effectively, the history of Ukraine begins with horse-riding steppe people. So it's effectively nomadic people that rode horses in the south of Ukraine through the plains, because south of Ukraine, I don't know if you remember from the topographic map on the previous slide, but it's flat. Lots of flat land, great for fields, great for horses. And so Ukraine, this is a historically debated fact, so I'm not saying this is for sure happened, but Ukraine is thought to be one of the places where the horse was first domesticated, so kind of interesting. Okay, so history of Kyiv begins with, that's an outdated slide, Pablo. So ignore what that slide says. That's actually, the second line is incorrect. That was part of my research when I was first starting with some initial information and check in. And so that date of 482 is a more modern version of when Ukraine was the first instance of Kiev being formed was. But that date is actually not accurate because truly historians don't actually know. There's a lot of information, a lot of back and forth, but essentially Kiev was formed somewhere between the 4th and the 9th century, so a pretty big gap there. But we do know that it was formed by Vikings. So initially Kiev was, if you, again, referring back to the topographical map, Dnipro is a big river, and Kiev is right on that river, and it acted as a really nice trading outpost. So there are a bunch of Vikings that would come from Scandinavia, and they would sail down to essentially Constantinople, now called Istanbul. And this was a major trading route, and Kiev just happened to be halfway through. So they established an outpost, and that is how history of Kiev began.
There will be a quiz on all this. I hope you understand this. So very quickly, just so that we're all prepared for the quiz, there will be prizes and everything. This pink area over here, he just mentioned it like 4 times. What is it called? Kiev and Rus. Kiev and Rus, that's the...
Yeah, well technically, actually, again, from my historic research from 2 days ago, it's actually not called Kiev and Rus. That is a modern name.
What is it called?
So it's just Rus, R-U-S. So the first appearance of the name Kiev and Rus actually came from the 18th century, when effectively Russia took on the name Russia, and Kiev and Rus got its name Kiev and Rus, where actually the original name of R-U-S is that area right there, and it's based from the Scandinavian word grow, because it was formed by, or the Vikings thought of the people that lived in that area as rowing people, because again, Dnipro and many other rivers form lots of networks that you can travel, but you have to row. And so that's where the name originates.
That's a great idea. You know, after we're done wrapping up this war and get Crimea and everything back, we should take some of that land back, just to make it clear.
I don't know, Lithuanians and Latvians and others there might not be so happy.
We'll share with everyone.
So the next big chapter, so again, I'm trying not to get too deep into the weeds, but just trying to like focus on the big events.
So, I see there's a few people at the door, and if you have a seat next to you, can you just raise your hand? Okay, Devchata, please come inside. It's very comfortable here. Dear gentleman in the green shirt, he looks very handsome. Who wants to sit next to a handsome gentleman over there? Perfect. Wonderful. Continue.
Okay, so who's heard of the Mongols? Okay, everybody's heard of the Mongols. Genghis Khan is a pretty, I don't want to use library appropriate terms, but pretty tough guy, horse riding guy. So the Mongols actually came in from the east, and in the period from between 1237 and 1240, they effectively took over the larger part of Kiev and Rus, including Kiev. Kiev was completely destroyed. They say that the majority of the population actually was killed at the time, so it was a major invasion, and that was effectively the end of that empire that lasted from 1862 to 1242, and the new chapter of that region begins. The next chapter is really complicated. I'm not going to go into too much detail again because borders kept changing between a lot of different hands, but effectively the main stakeholders of the region was the Ottoman Empire in the south. That's the Crimean Khanate or Khanate. I'm not actually sure how to say that word in English. The Lithuanian-Polish Commonwealth in the north, in northwest, and then the Russian Empire in the east. And it effectively stayed that way for a few hundred years. A lot of fighting back and forth until there was a major development, and that's essentially the beginning of modern Ukraine when we think about like Cossacks and Habak and a lot of traditional dancing. Bandura, by the way, where's your Bandura?
It's over here.
Oh, yeah,
Bandura.
Yeah, so Bandura originates in about this time, so 1649, 1775, was the period when Cossacks ruled in the south of Ukraine. So a couple of really interesting points about Cossacks. So Cossacks may have established the first truly democratic government in Europe. So in fact, I have a picture of the original constitution that was ratified in 1710. And the constitution actually divided the Hetmanate, which is the name for the Cossack ruled federation. It divided into 3 branches, which is caused the separation of powers, and may be familiar with you guys may be familiar with the legislative, executive, and judicial branch, just like the U.S. government. So the U.S. Constitution was ratified in 1776. This one's in 1710. So we actually had a precedent in Ukraine to a democratic rule. I'm going to go quickly on this one because we're going to move on. But effectively, some more important dates on the bottom here. So Ukraine had existed and declared its independence a number of times in the past. So you can see, so the 1918 date is pretty important because that was the first time that the Ukraine declared independence from the Russian Empire, and then again in 1991 from Russia as part of the Soviet Union. And so, the Ukrainian symbolism, the Ukrainian flag, those are not new things. They've existed for centuries in the past. And you can see the history is quite complicated with a lot of back and forth, a lot of fighting for independence.
If you like what you heard, there's a really cool book. It came out just this year. I'm really listening to it on my Spotify right now, on audio. It's called Gates of Europe. It's written by a Harvard professor from very kind of Western American perspective. And it really covers a lot of this. It's a really nice book. It's available on audiobooks. So if you want to hear more of what you just heard, that's a good one. I do not get any commission from the sales of the book. So independent recommendation. All right. Now let's talk about Ukrainian language. So we're going to do some pop quizzes. Before you even go there, what is the name of in the alphabet that we use in English is Latin alphabet. What is the type of alphabet that is used in Ukrainian language? Does anybody know? Tak, slovo. Cyrillic. Beautiful. Very nice. There we go. Cyrillic alphabet. So the old Slavic family of languages, it really started becoming more and more distinct to different regions in the 11th century.
Yeah, so 11th century date is pretty important because that was the first historically noted time when Ukrainian language developed into its own definitive language. So it's been around for quite some time.
So Konstantin and I are engineers, so we think in terms of percentages.
I thought it was a historian.
So we're changing our majors as we go through.
Multifaceted.
Exactly. So think of this as a little bit of a Venn diagram, right? So we have a pretty large overlap with Poland as far as our languages.
Yeah, this
we got 70% with Polish, is that right?
Yeah, 70% Lexical with Polish, 84 with Belarusian, and
over here.
Yeah, and 62 with Russian. The family or the language map on the left is actually pretty interesting. I looked at the map for probably like 15 minutes, where you can see kind of how languages separated and came back together and influenced each other. And you can see Ukrainian, by the way, if it's hard to read, it's in the bottom left, so it's like the middle green one over there, and it has influences from Old Slavic languages, and then clear influence from Slovak, Polish, and I think that's it for the more modern Ukrainian. Yeah, so Russian and Ukrainian split way back in history, still during the Kiev and Rus times.
So just like we all speak English, so we kind of know where our words came from, right? So French and English used to battle each other all the time, and they would kind of trade words here and there. So the word for hard is, it's kind of Germanic, right? Because they would fight with us. And then the synonym difficult is French, right? So we have a lot of English words that we borrowed from people that are kind of next to us. That's really what's happening here, right? We got a lot of language complexity because they used to, of course, trade Polish people, and later it became Russia and then Belarusians and so forth. Let's talk about a flag. Question, tell us about the flag.
Okay, I can do this. I think you guys have seen this before. This is the flag of the independent Ukraine as it is today. So, can anybody tell me what the colors on the flag represent?
Let's pick a volunteer. Gentleman in the green shirt. Stand up. What is your name?
You can tell us.
We've never met him, so this is not like a magician or we have a friend. I've never met him before. What's your name, man? Sergey. Tell us a little bit about the flag. What do you know? Face these. Yeah, come to the last person there, actually. There is a kind of
And there's no way to be wrong, too. Whatever you say is going to be correct.
I know that the blue on the flag represents the sky.
Correct. And the yellow? What's under the sky? In Ukraine. What grows from the ground?
What is a very useful crop that is on the bottom, under the sky? Sunflowers, wheat, there's no wrong answers.
Wheat.
Yes. Got it. Wheat. Yeah. Thank you for joining. So, yeah, the blue is the sky, the yellow is the wheat. It can also be sunflowers. There are a lot of things that grow in Ukraine that are yellow and that are that feed a lot of people around the world. So this is their presentation of. So I have a little creative moment here.
There will be a quiz about this.
So now this flag. Has anybody seen this flag?
So let's have a volunteer. Come on. No? Okay. Next volunteer. Come on, with a lady.
Okay, go.
With this one.
Okay, yes.
Tell us about this flag.
Well, in the 20th century, this flag has been known and associated with this Ukrainian struggle for independence. But actually, this flag was used for the first time in the 17th century during the Cossack uprising. And this flag is actually a Ukrainian war flag whenever there is Ukrainian blood that's spilled over Ukrainian soil. So it really represents fighting for our land and shedding our blood for our soil.
That's perfect, yes.
Blood in the soil for 500 points.
Yeah, so if you...
Something about that.
Yes.
Yes.
So why it's red and black? Does anybody know about it?
Tell us.
I was just going to mention it, but I can... Tell us, no.
Well, it's very important because if a normal flag is going to be on a battlefield, and usually they do use it sometime when they lose the limb or something, the wound is open. So they use the flag. And when this flag is going to be soaked in blood, it's going to look just like that. And why it was opposite, it used to be, that used to be represent the sun, and this used to be the water. It used to be that.
Very good.
That's right.
We're going to have an art activity where we're going to do that experiment later.
So effectively the colors, if you imagine taking this flag and, soaking it in blood, effectively, this is what you get. And it's, you will see this type of flag too. A lot of soldiers wear it as a patch, so it is a wartime Ukrainian flag. Brief history. First introduction of modern Ukrainian colors was all the way from the 15th century. The Cossacks also used colors that are similar to the modern Ukrainian flag during their Filenko period. And then the first introduction of the modern Ukrainian flag as we know it today is from around, there's no official date, but it's from around middle of the 19th century. And then of course it was used during the brief independence period in the 1917 and officially became the flag of the free Ukraine in 1992.
Who knows what this is? Okay, we need new volunteers. Anybody raise your hand? I will not make you go up here, I promise. What is this thing called? Sluvia. You. What is the thing called? A shield. Very good, very good. Definitely on a lot of shields. Oh, how about you? Trizu. Beautiful. Trizu literally means 3 teeth. So, it is right now the coat of arms of Ukraine. As you can see by the timeline here, I'm not going to make you say all these names, but it's over 1,000 years old. It appeared on a lot of currency. They discovered, they traded with Romans, they traded with a lot of people using this currency. And very modern, so it has a lot of interpretations, right? Everybody likes this, talking about this. If you turn this sideways, it looks like a bird. If you turn this upside down, it looks like a church. Look at it this way, it looks like a weapon. And so people like to kind of reimagine what people made of this. Right now, it's a really cool, especially during the war, very cool interpretation. If you look at these shapes, they spell voля. Voля means freedom. And this is really how we'd like to view this symbol in modern days. Konstantin, tell us a little bit about current events and a little bit of trouble that we're getting through right now that we're going to hopefully surpass pretty soon.
Yeah, we are running out of time.
Okay, go.
So I have to be very quick. And this is probably the most important
Last
slide.
round.
Yeah, this is probably the most important slide of all, but we have a lot more of the program still ahead of us. There is war in Ukraine. It's not surprising. But, you know, we had to show, without getting overly political or specific, this is what the map of Ukraine looks like. This is as of a couple of days ago. So you saw the topographic, the blue map in the beginning of the presentation. The red and pink areas are the areas that Russia currently occupies in Ukraine. I want to just remind everybody that it is an illegal and unprovoked occupation, and Ukraine is currently actively fighting to essentially get Ukrainian land back under Ukrainian control. That's what this war is about. Russia came in and tried to land grab. Ukraine is fighting back to get the land back to Ukraine. I think we can do it.
Okay, I'm going to do a flash round of some, this is, as you can tell, a very cultural program. So I'm going to say a few things that you guys should kind of know. First of all, there's a very important Ukrainian instrument. You want to pick it up, this one?
Bandura?
Yep, bandura, yep. So how many strings do you think this beast has? 64. That's correct, but now I'm playing this thing in this rock band, so depending on how loud he is, I have to play louder, so I constantly break them. So sometimes it goes to 50, sometimes it goes to 60. So this one is 64. Historically, there used to be an instrument called kobza. There will be a quiz, it's not on the slide. And it had 7, 8, 9, 10 strings, and they kept adding more and more strings to it. Where today, we have, in the 60s, this is a modern instrument. This one is made in Chernihiv, north of Kiev, in the 80s. That's the one that I play right now. You'll hear it in a little bit. Who knows what's going on here? There's these guys in funny red pants jumping. What are they doing? What is this? Any volunteers? Hopak. Hopak. Excellent. Tell us, do you know what the hopak is? What is it? Yeah, exactly. It's a Ukrainian dance. The funny, interesting thing here is Cossacks were warriors, and they had a lot of very physical military exercises. So when they needed to impress some girls, to make some babies, all they knew is how to jump and kick and throw each other and do backflips. So they're like, you know what, we're gonna start doing that, and hopefully it works. And it worked. Ukraine the birth rate is doing really well because Ukrainians do a lot of hopak in front of pretty girls, and that's what's going on. Military exercises equal today. Thank you. Okay, what's going on here? Quick question, tell us, very quickly.
The man is playing a very long pipe.
Yeah, exactly, trembita. They use it in western Ukraine, just like you see in other alpine areas to communicate. And it's called trembita. Visit House of Ukraine. And I do not have a trembita because it's too loud. As in the library said, we have some noise and playing sometimes. So I only brought a bandura. It's a little quieter, but if you visit House of Ukraine, you'll see one of those. We have them. Really beautiful. As long as this is longer. Sipilka, it's like a mini trembita compared to a recorder. They got obviously evolved into very sophisticated classical music. This is a pretty famous guy. His name is Nicola Lysenko. I recommend Googling him. And there's a long tradition of very sophisticated choral music.
Quick note on Mykola Lysenko. So Carol of the Bells. Dun, 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 dun. Yes, but it has to do with classical composers. So it's a chapter that will come. So then the
That's exactly what this choir is. They went to and traveled across U.S. and they sang the song Shedrik Shedrik, and now it's known as Carol of the Bells. Fun facts, to Konstantin.
Let's just skip the fun facts.
Fun fact, Ukraine is fun. Check it out, Google it. And that's about it. Now we have another. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions about anything? Yes.
So, how many Ukrainians have now left Ukraine to come to America?
Does anybody, I don't know, I have to say, but that's a good point of discussion. How many Ukrainians have traveled to America maybe in the last year and a half since the start of the war? Does anybody have approximate numbers?
100,000.
So U.S. said that they're accepting 100,000 Ukrainians, that's it, by sponsorship. So that's probably the kind of close number.
Legal numbers.
Legal number, yes, so statistically. Here in San Diego, we received, well, there was supposed to be like 10,000 Ukrainians before, maybe if you're right, or a few thousand came. So not that much. In Europe took the most, because US is too far to the ocean, so not many people can fly. So
Really good question. Yeah. I'm sure some have, but Ukrainians